First Contact's folly. The massive crystalline dome of the galactic Concordat's Hall of Assembly stretched overhead like an artificial sky, its faceted surface refracting starlight into rainbow patterns across the gathered delegates. Captain Sarah Chen stood at perfect attention, her dress whites crisp despite the 9-hour wait, as yet another alien dignitary peered at the hologram floating between them. "This cannot be correct," rumbled Ambassador Tlaxi, his crystalline exoskeleton chiming softly as he gestured with 3 of his appendages. "Your species claims to be a spacefaring power, yet these vessels are barely larger than our atmospheric shuttles." Sarah maintained her diplomatic smile, though her jaw tightened imperceptibly. The hologram showed humanity's pride. The Wolfpack-class strike cruiser. At just under 200 meters long, it was indeed tiny compared to the kilometer-long behemoths the Concordat favored. But size wasn't everything. "I assure you, Ambassador, the Wolfpack class represents the pinnacle of human military engineering," she said. "What we lack in size, we make up for in maneuverability, efficiency, and tactical flexibility." A ripple of something like laughter passed through the assembled aliens, some clicking mandibles, others vibrating chromatophores, a few actually producing sounds recognizable as mirth. The Supreme Chancellor, a towering being of living crystal named Anxithal, raised an appendage for silence. "Captain Chen," it resonated, "while we appreciate humanity's enthusiasm for joining the galactic community, perhaps you misunderstand the nature of space warfare. Our vessels are large because that is what works. Mass equals survival. Energy projection requires volume. These are fundamental principles." Sarah had been warned about this reaction. Human ships violated every principle of warship design the Concordat had developed over millennia. But centuries of warfare in the solar system had taught humanity different lessons. With respect, Chancellor, different environments breed different solutions. Humanity developed our doctrine fighting in the asteroid fields of our home system. We learned that agility and precision could overcome raw power. Asteroid fields. Tlaxi's crystalline form sparkled with amusement. "My dear Captain, real warfare happens in deep space. Clean lines of fire, massive energy exchanges. Your vessels would be vaporized in seconds." Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared through the chamber. A junior aide rushed to the Chancellor's side, its crystalline surface clouded with anxiety. "Chancellor, the outer rim monitoring stations have gone dark. Multiple colonies report unknown contacts at the edges of their systems." The chamber erupted in chaos. The Concordat hadn't faced a serious military threat in centuries. Their massive warships enforced peace through overwhelming power, but something had slipped through their defenses. Sarah watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The unknown contacts were small, fast-moving signatures that appeared and disappeared at will. The Concordat's mighty warships were already moving to respond, but they seemed to be swinging their guns at shadows. "Captain Chen," the Chancellor's voice cut through the chaos. "Your species claims expertise in dealing with small, agile threats. Would you care to observe our response? Perhaps offer insights?" Sarah nodded, recognizing the olive branch for what it was. "Thank you, Chancellor. I would be honored." As she followed the Chancellor to the command center, Sarah couldn't help but think that the Concordat was about to learn some harsh lessons about the evolution of warfare. Sometimes the smallest predators were the deadliest, and humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of the swift kill. The massive displays of the command center painted a grim picture. 3 colony systems were under attack by unknown forces. The Concordat's response fleets were mobilizing, but they moved with ponderous grace, like whales chasing minnows. What manner of species would dare? Tlaxa wondered aloud. "Our warships are invincible." Sarah studied the attack patterns with growing unease. The unknown ships were using tactics eerily similar to human doctrine. Strike from cover, exploit blind spots, never stand and fight. Either they'd been studying humanity's classified combat manuals, or they'd evolved similar solutions to similar problems. Either way, the galaxy was about to discover that size wasn't everything in war, and humanity's tiny ships might just prove to be exactly what was needed. The Silent Hunters. The Concordat's Strategic Command Center had been operating at full alert for 3 weeks. Holographic displays showed a spreading web of red markers, systems where the mysterious raiders had struck. Chancellor Exthol's crystalline form had grown noticeably duller with stress. Another freighter lost in the Carina sector, reported Admiral Kvax, his scaled hide shifting patterns of distress. Same pattern. Small ships emerge from nowhere, disable the escorts with precision strikes, then strip the freighter bare. Gone before reinforcements arrive. Sarah Chen, now serving as humanity's military liaison, studied the latest attack footage. The raiders' ships were dark, almost organic in appearance, and moved with predatory grace. They struck in packs of 3 to 5, overwhelming larger vessels through coordinated attacks. Notice how they target the drive nodes, she pointed out. They're not trying to destroy the ships. They're paralyzing them. These aren't random attacks. This is a hunting pattern. Talaxi's crystalline form chimed with dismissal. Preposterous. Our warships are the apex predators of space. These vermin simply lack the courage to face us in proper combat. A junior officer interrupted with fresh news. Sirs, the Helios colony has gone dark. All communications ceased 5 minutes ago. Helios was a major industrial center, protected by 3 of the Concordat's mighty Sunbreaker-class dreadnoughts. Each vessel was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a continent. The idea that raiders would dare attack such a target was unthinkable. Show us, the Chancellor commanded. The main display shifted to show Helios' orbital space. The 3 dreadnoughts were clearly visible, their massive forms highlighted against the star field. But among the civilian traffic and defense platforms, darker shapes moved like sharks through a reef. Count at least 20 hostile vessels, Kvax reported. They're attacking the dreadnoughts directly. Sarah leaned forward, studying the unfolding battle with professional fascination. The raiders struck with terrifying precision, their smaller ships diving between the dreadnoughts' massive energy weapons. Point defense systems designed to swat fighter craft from space proved useless against vessels that moved like they ignored physics. Look at their coordination, she muttered. This isn't just hit and run. They're hurting the dreadnoughts, forcing them to block each other's firing lines. The Concordat officers watched in horror as their mighty warships, each capable of destroying small moons, were systematically crippled by enemies they couldn't effectively target. The raiders struck at weapon mounts, sensor arrays, and drive systems with surgical precision. Impossible, Talaxi whispered. Our tactical simulations showed this could never happen. Small ships cannot defeat proper warships. Sarah thought of the war games her Wolfpack squadron had run against traditional fleet elements. Size meant nothing if you couldn't bring your weapons to bear. And these raiders had clearly learned the same lessons humanity had. Chancellor, she said carefully, I think it's time we discussed why humanity built our ships the way we did. And perhaps why these raiders seem to be using such similar tactics. Before she could continue, new alerts flashed across the displays. The raiders had breached Helios' orbital defense grid, but instead of bombarding the surface or landing troops, they were building something. Multiple structures detected in high orbit, an analyst reported. They appeared to be some kind of automated factories. They're building more ships. Sarah felt her blood run cold. This wasn't just raiding anymore. This was invasion by a force that understood exactly how to neutralize the Concordat's mighty but inflexible fleet. An enemy that thought like humans but fought with inhuman precision. Chancellor, she said, I need to contact Earth immediately. If these raiders follow the pattern I think they're following, Helios is just the beginning. They're not here to steal resources or territory. They're here to reproduce and spread. Like a virus, Kvax whispered, his scales now pale with fear. No, Sarah corrected, like a swarm. And the only way to fight a swarm is with something faster and more aggressive than they are. She allowed herself a small smile. Fortunately, humanity has quite a bit of experience with exactly that. The Chancellor's crystalline form pulsed with decision. Captain Chen, I believe it's time we saw exactly what your tiny ships can do. Because if we cannot stop this threat at Helios, he didn't need to finish. Everyone in the command center could see the tactical projections. At their current rate of reproduction and expansion, the raiders would overrun the entire sector within months. The age of the massive warship was over. The era of the wolf pack had begun. Operation Mosquito. The bridge of the UDS Quicksilver hummed with quiet efficiency as Captain Chen studied the holographic representation of the Helios system. 20 human warships, 5 full wolf packs, had assembled just outside the system's gravity well. They were about to demonstrate why humanity had chosen a very different path in military evolution. All ships report ready, Captain, Lieutenant Rivera announced from Tactical. Wolf packs are synchronized and combat systems are hot. The raiders had transformed Helios' orbit into a nightmare of automated factories and half-built ships. The 3 crippled Concordat dreadnoughts hung in space like beached whales, their massive forms now serving as raw material for the invaders' expansion. Ambassador Talaxi's hologram flickered beside Sarah's command chair. Captain, I must once again protest. 20 ships against their hundreds. This is suicide. Wait for our heavy reinforcements. Sarah smiled tightly. Ambassador, with respect, that's exactly what they expect everyone to do. Now, watch and learn. She keyed her fleet-wide channel. All wolf packs, execute Operation Mosquito. Hunt free. The human ships accelerated into the system, but not as a single formation. Each wolf pack of 4 ships took a different vector, their paths seemingly random. The raiders reacted instantly, launching swarms of their dark vessels to intercept. Just like we predicted, Sarah murmured. They think they're the apex predators. Time to show them what real pack hunters can do. The Quicksilver's tactical officer grinned as the first engagement began. They're trying to use our tactics against us, Captain, but their coordination isn't quite right. The raiders were fast and deadly, but they fought like machines, predictable once you understood their patterns. The human wolf packs, however, moved with controlled chaos. Where the raiders sought to overwhelm with numbers, the human ships danced through their formation, turning their own mass against them. Wolfpack Artemis, slip the net and strike their factory complexes, Sarah commanded. Wolfpack Orion, keep them busy. Make it look good. The human ships carried a secret weapon, one born from centuries of fighting in the crowded spaces of the solar system. Their drives didn't just provide propulsion. They could actively manipulate local gravity fields. When multiple ships worked in concert, they could create devastating gravitational shockwaves. Gravitational resonance synchronized, Rivera reported. All wolf packs in position. Sarah allowed herself a predatory smile. Execute primary strike. The space around the raiders' largest factory complex suddenly twisted. Gravitational forces that had taken decades to perfect tore through the enemy formation. Ships designed to strike and evade found themselves caught in artificial gravity wells, their superior mobility turned against them. Multiple hostile contacts breaking up, Tactical reported with professional satisfaction. Their formation is compromised. They're trying to adapt, but their networked response is too slow. The raiders' strength had been their ability to coordinate perfect attacks through some kind of shared consciousness. But that same connection meant they couldn't adapt quickly enough when faced with completely unknown tactics. Where they moved as one, humanity's wolf packs moved as individuals united by training and intuition. Second wave, commence, Sarah ordered. Show them why we named these ships after pack hunters. The wolf packs struck from multiple vectors, their gravity drives creating a constantly shifting battlefield that negated the raiders' numerical advantage. What looked like chaos to the observing Concordat officers was actually a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. By the eternal stars, Talaxe whispered, his crystalline form flickering with disbelief. "Your ships, they're hurting them. Like prey." Sarah nodded. Humanity learned long ago that space combat isn't about size or numbers. It's about control of the battlefield itself. We didn't build small ships because we had to. We built them because they're the perfect predators. The raiders were learning this lesson too late. Their swarm tried to adapt, to evolve new tactics, but the human wolf packs kept changing the rules of engagement. Every time the enemy seemed to understand one tactic, the human ships shifted to another. "Factory Complex Alpha is breaking up," Rivera reported. "Their production capacity is down 60% and falling. Wolfpack Artemis reports their targeting data has been fully collected." That had been the true purpose of this first engagement, not just to bloody the enemy, but to understand them. Each human ship carried sophisticated analysis systems, gathering data on the raiders' every response and adaptation. "Signal the Concordat," Sarah ordered. "Tell them Operation Mosquito was a success. We've proven the concept." She paused, watching another enemy factory tear itself apart under gravitational stress. "And tell them to prepare their shipyards. It's time they learned how to build proper hunting packs of their own." The battle for Helios was just the beginning. The raiders would adapt, evolve new tactics, but they would learn what every predator eventually discovered. Sometimes the smallest hunter was the deadliest, and humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of the kill. The swarm strikes back. 3 months after the Battle of Helios, humanity's victory felt hollow. The raiders, now dubbed the Morphids due to their constantly evolving tactics, had withdrawn, but not retreated. Intelligence suggested they were adapting, learning, changing their entire approach to warfare. Sarah Chen, now promoted to admiral, stood in the Concordat's newly redesigned strategic command center. The old crystalline aesthetics had been replaced with more practical holographic interfaces, one of many changes the aliens had adopted from their human allies. "The Morphids have changed their ship architecture completely," she reported to the assembled command staff. "They're no longer copying our Wolfpack designs. They're trying something new." The tactical display showed the latest reconnaissance footage. The enemy vessels had evolved into crystalline structures, each one unique, like deadly snowflakes in space. They moved differently too, no longer hunting in packs, but forming into lattice-like formations that could split and recombine at will. "They're learning from both of us," Ambassador Tlaxi observed, his own crystalline form resonating with concern. "Taking the Concordat's mastery of crystal engineering and combining it with human tactical flexibility." Before Sarah could respond, emergency alerts flashed across every screen. The Morphids had been found, and they were attacking in a way no one had predicted. Multiple incursions detected, the tactical officer announced, his scales shifting patterns of alarm. They're everywhere. Not just military targets. They're hitting civilian stations, mining outposts, even agricultural colonies. The display filled with red icons as attacks were reported across 12 sectors simultaneously. The Morphids had transformed from pack hunters into a true swarm, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers and coordination. "How are they coordinating on this scale?" Chancellor Enxithal demanded. "Even with quantum communications, the lag time should make this impossible." Sarah studied the attack patterns, her mind racing. "They're not coordinating in real time. Look at the crystalline structures of their ships. They're using the same principles as your biotechnology. Each ship is part of a distributed consciousness. They don't need to communicate because they're all expressions of the same entity." The implications were terrifying. Humanity had taught the Morphids about pack tactics. The Concordat had unknowingly shown them how to build crystalline computing systems. The enemy had combined these lessons into something entirely new. "Admiral Chen," the Chancellor's voice carried an edge of desperation. "How do we fight an enemy that can think as one but act as many?" Sarah watched as another colony went dark. The combined human Concordat fleet was responding, but they were always one step behind. The enemy had evolved beyond simple pack tactics. They needed to evolve too. "We adapt," she said firmly. "Humanity taught them about wolves. The Concordat taught them about crystals. Now we teach them about something else, the human capacity for unconventional thinking." She pulled up the designs she'd been working on with Concordat engineers. "We call it the Chimera Protocol. Instead of fighting the swarm, we become one ourselves." But with a crucial difference. The hologram showed new hybrid ships, combining human gravity drive technology with Concordat crystal engineering. But these weren't simple warships. They were platforms for something far more ambitious. "The Morphids think they've mastered distributed consciousness," Sarah explained. "But they're still thinking like machines. Perfect coordination, perfect symmetry. We're going to show them what happens when you combine human intuition with Concordat crystal networks." Talaxi's form sparkled with sudden understanding. "You want to network our pilots? Create a human swarm?" "Not quite." Sarah smiled grimly. "We're going to network everything. Pilots, ships, even the space between them. But instead of trying to achieve perfect coordination, we're going to embrace chaos. Human minds linked through Concordat crystals, each one thinking independently, but acting as part of a greater whole." The display showed simulations of the new hybrid fleet in action. Ships that could split and recombine like the Morphids, but with human pilots whose unpredictable decisions would ripple through the network in ways no machine consciousness could predict. "It's insane," Talaxi whispered. "Brilliant, but insane. The neural load alone." "That's why we start training immediately," Sarah said. "The Morphids will keep evolving. We need to evolve faster. And this time, we use our greatest strength, the fact that no two humans think exactly alike." The Chancellor's crystalline form pulsed with decision. "Begin production immediately. And Admiral, are you certain humans can handle this level of neural integration?" Sarah thought of the simulator runs, of minds touching minds through crystal matrices, of the strange new way of thinking that emerged when human consciousness flowed through Concordat technology. "Chancellor, humanity has dreamed of touching the infinite since we first looked at the stars. Now we're going to show the Morphids what happens when those dreams have teeth." The war was entering a new phase. The enemy had learned to think as one. Now they would learn what happened when they faced thousands of minds thinking as many but striking as one. Not with machine precision, but with human creativity multiplied 1,000-fold. The real battle was about to begin. Evolution of war. The void between stars shimmered with crystalline light as the combined human Concordat fleet approached the Morphid home system. 5,000 ships moved in perfect symmetry. A dance of chaos and order that had taken 6 months of neural integration training to achieve. Admiral Sarah Chen no longer perceived space through merely human senses. The crystalline matrix that networked the fleet fed directly into her consciousness, allowing her to feel every ship, every pilot, every minute fluctuation in the quantum field between them. "All neural networks stable," reported Captain Rivera, his thoughts rippling through the crystal link. "Chimera Protocol operating at 97% efficiency." The fleet moved like a living constellation, ships splitting and recombining in patterns that would have been impossible to coordinate through conventional means. Each pilot maintained their individual consciousness while simultaneously existing as part of the greater whole, humanity's answer to the Morphid swarm. "They're reacting," Sarah felt rather than saw the enemy's response. The Morphids had evolved again, their ships now forming into massive crystalline structures that dwarfed even traditional Concordat dreadnoughts. Fascinating. Talaxi's thoughts chimed through the network. The ambassador had insisted on joining the neural link, becoming one of the first Concordat beings to directly share consciousness with humans. "They're trying to match our integration, but they're still thinking like machines." The Morphid superstructures began to move, breaking apart and reforming like deadly kaleidoscopes. Their crystalline ships generated gravity fields that could tear conventional vessels apart. But the human Concordat fleet was far from conventional. "All units," Sarah projected through the network. Execute Evolution Protocol Omega. Show them what true adaptation looks like. The fleet's response was instantaneous but not uniform. Each ship, each squadron, each battle group moved according to their pilot's intuition, while the crystalline network ensured their chaos served a greater purpose. Where the Morphids sought perfect patterns, the human fleet created beautiful disorder. Gravity wells collided with crystal matrices. Ships phased through spaces that shouldn't exist. The battle was fought not just in normal space, but in the quantum realm that the crystal technology could access. Human intuition guided by concordat science, thousands of minds thinking differently, but acting as one. They're trying to adapt. Rivera's thought carried a note of grim satisfaction. But they can't predict what we'll do because we're not trying to be predictable. The Morphids had based their entire evolution on copying and perfecting the strategies of others. But they couldn't copy the inherent chaos of human creativity multiplied across a neural network. Each time they adapted to one pattern, the human fleet was already shifting to something new. Now, Sarah commanded, feeling the perfect moment approach. Show them why humanity never stopped dreaming of impossible things. The fleet came together in a maneuver that defied conventional physics. Thousands of ships, their crystal matrices synchronized by human will, created a cascading series of gravity wells that folded space itself. The Morphid superstructures, for all their size and power, found themselves caught in a web of warped reality. The quantum cascade is stable, Talaxi reported with awe. They're being pulled into their own crystal matrices. The Morphids try to adapt one final time, their ships attempting to merge into an even larger structure. But size was no defense against the laws of physics being rewritten by human imagination, working through crystal technology. Sarah felt the moment their collective consciousness shattered. The enemy's perfect unity broke under the strain of trying to comprehend and counter thousands of human minds, all thinking differently at once. Their ships, cut off from their network, began to break apart. Hold positions, she commanded as the cascade continued. Let them see what true evolution looks like. The battle ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with a shift in reality itself. The remaining Morphid ships, their crystalline forms dulled and lifeless, drifted in space like abandoned sculptures. Their consciousness hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed. There, changing, Talaxi observed through the network. The cascade didn't just defeat them, it forced them to truly evolve. The Morphid remains were already beginning to show signs of independent thought, each fragment developing its own unique patterns rather than trying to achieve perfect unity. They had finally learned the lesson humanity had been trying to teach them, that true strength comes not from perfect coordination, but from the beautiful chaos of individual minds working together. Send the signal to all sectors, Sarah commanded. The war is over, but our evolution is just beginning. The human Concordat fleet hung in space, their crystal matrices humming with the thoughts of thousands. They had created something entirely new, not just a way of fighting, but a way of thinking that combined the best of both species. What now, Admiral? Rivera asked through the network. Sarah looked out at the galaxy through both human eyes and crystal senses. Now we explore. There are still endless possibilities out there. And humanity has never been good at sitting still once we've learned how to do something new. The fleet began its journey home, moving in patterns that would have been impossible just a year ago. They had set out to fight a war and ended up transforming themselves instead. The age of singular species was over. The era of true evolution had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other intelligences watched and wondered what this strange new fusion of human chaos and alien order would become.